We have just begun our walk through the entirety of Manhattan. We're at Inwood Hill Park at the tip top.
Zohran Mamdani isn't the kind of politician you see on talk shows or magazine covers. He doesn't lead with flash, and he's not chasing headlines. But in Astoria, Queens, his impact is unmistakable. You'll find him marching alongside tenants, riding the subway, and knocking on doors long after the cameras are gone. He's also not backed by dynasties or wealth, and his net worth is modest, more in line with a middle-class commuter than an Albany insider. But that's precisely what defines his political strength and grassroots movement. Zohran stands out because he refuses to play the part. No polished optics, no soundbite slogans, just lived values, community ties, and a relentless push for housing justice, transit access, and tenants' rights. Today we'll explore the life of Mamdani, not just as a legislator, but as a reflection of what political power can look like when it's built from the ground up, from Uganda to Queens. Zohran Mamdani was born on October 18, 1991, in Kampala, Uganda, a city still shaking off the weight of dictatorship and rediscovering itself through cultural and political revival. But his early years would soon stretch far beyond East Africa. His family moved to New York City, settling in Manhattan. His father, Mahmoud Mamdani, is a renowned political scientist whose work on post-colonialism, justice, and power shaped Zohran's intellectual foundation. His mother, Mira Nair, is an acclaimed filmmaker known for storytelling that cuts through diaspora and identity with striking emotional clarity. From Monsoon Wedding to The Namesake, her films echoed the questions that were already being asked around the Mamdani dinner table. Their household wasn't rich in the traditional sense, but it was dense with ideas. Uganda's history, India's independence, Palestine, and apartheid. These weren't just topics for debate. They were personal. Political theory and lived experience blurred together, and young Zohran absorbed it all. Moving between Uganda, India, and New York gave him a front row seat to global contradictions. Growing up South Asian, East African, Muslim, and American wasn't confusing. It was expansive. He learned to see exclusion not as an anomaly, but as something designed and worth fighting. At school, he felt the weight of cultural negotiation. At home, English mixed with Urdu, history with resistance. He once described himself as a child of contradiction, but that complexity gave him empathy and eventually a political voice, political awakening and entry. Zohran Mamdani didn't enter politics with fanfare or flashy endorsements. He arrived on the scene the way he's lived most of his life, quietly, directly, and from the ground up. But before getting into that, it's important to go through his education, as it gives a clear understanding of the man he has become today. Mamdani attended the Bank Street School for Children, where he successfully ran as the independent candidate in a middle school mock election, adopting a platform of equal rights, anti-war policy that proposed spending money on education rather than the military. He later graduated from the Bronx High School of Science in Kingsbridge Heights, where he unsuccessfully ran for student body vice president. Mamdani then attended Bowdoin College in Brunswick, Maine, where he co-founded the school's chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine. He graduated in 2014 with a bachelor's degree in African Studies, so it's safe to say he's always had politics in mind. Before office, he was a housing foreclosure prevention counselor in Queens, sitting across kitchen tables from tenants on the verge of eviction. This wasn't politics as theory, it was politics as survival. He listened to stories of broken leases, negligent landlords, and courts that moved too slowly to matter. In those rooms, the policy wasn't abstract, it was urgent. It was this work that led Mamdani to organizing first with local housing groups, then with the Democratic Socialists of America. His connection to the DSA wasn't driven by dogma, it was driven by action, door knocking, organizing, and fighting for rent control and tenant protections alongside the very people experiencing the fallout. By 2020, Mamdani ran for state assembly in District 36, Astoria, Queens. He had no corporate backing, no glossy mailers, no deep pockets, but he had people, volunteers who printed flyers in multiple languages, neighbors who hosted meetings on stoops and in parks, tenants who knew him not from ads but from shared experience. True to his values, his platform wasn't tailored for safe politics. It was bold: housing justice, fair free transit, public power, and Palestinian rights. And in a year defined by a pandemic and political fatigue, Mamdani's message didn't just cut through, it won. It was a grassroots campaign that proved something rare. You don't have to sell out to win. You can run with principles and still make it into office. Daily life and modest habits. Zohran Mamdani didn't enter office to reinvent himself. He simply kept living the way he always had. While most politicians move up and out, he stays in his modest Astoria apartment that he still rents to this very day. No townhouses, no second homes, no luxury real estate portfolio.
So what's your take?
I should be the mayor.
I don't know, man.
His daily commute, the same N train he's always taken since he doesn't own a car, which is not a campaign stunt, but because it's how he gets around. That subway ride or the same winter coat at protests and budget hearings is all part of his quiet refusal to perform power the way politics usually demands. His assembly salary of just over $142,000 a year isn't bolstered by corporate consulting or cushy side hustles, but that's precisely the point. Mamdani's lifestyle isn't a gimmick, it's a statement. When wealth and branding dominate the political class, his bare bones authenticity sends a louder message than any slogan. I'm not above this, I'm in it with you. Even his social media is practical, with more updates than optics. You won't find heavily produced videos or curated aesthetic shots that other politicians focus on. Just straightforward posts, often blunt, always honest, and when there's a rally or tenant meeting, he shows up in person, notebook in hand, no entourage in sight. He listens more than he speaks. It's clear that Mamdani's politics aren't built on appearances. They're built on presence, on showing up again and again. In an age of political spectacle, his commitment to living like his constituents stands out as rare, almost radical. And in today's climate, that's power, cultural identity, and intersection. Zohran Mamdani's politics can't be separated from who he is, not in a symbolic checkbox way, but in the way his entire worldview has been shaped by culture, migration, faith, and belonging. He is South Asian and East African, Muslim, the child of immigrants, and a product of Manhattan, one of the most diverse places in America. These aren't side notes, they are the foundation of his political life. He has spoken about attending mosques, hearing stories of war, exile, and home building, about growing up feeling both visible and invisible, marked by race, religion, and name, yet left out of the mainstream narrative. The duality of being seen and still overlooked informs how he approaches politics. It's why he speaks at town halls in multiple languages, why he references the Indian partition as easily as he quotes New York tenant law. His politics aren't theoretical. They're rooted in daily realities. In Astoria, where Bangladeshi, Egyptian, Greek, Latinx, and working class white communities coexist, Mamdani offers more than representation. He reflects them. He doesn't filter out his roots for political convenience. Instead, he weaves them into the story, quoting African political theorists, South Asian poets, and honoring public school teachers in Queens as intellectual ancestors. At interfaith rallies, he speaks in Urdu, Bengali, and English, not for effect, but because language is identity and connection is power. During assembly debates, he grounds policy in personal memory, like Eid prayers in crowded apartments or tea with his mother in Jackson Heights. When discussing anti-Semitism, he draws on generational memory of displacement, speaking not as a politician trying to be careful, but as someone who's lived what division looks like. Movement, not machine. Zohran Mamdani has built a political identity that's rooted in action, not applause.
A city where they can do more than just struggle, where hard work is repaid with a stable life.
Since his election to the New York State Assembly, he's made it clear he's not there to climb the ranks, he's there to shift the ground. His approach rejects traditional political theater in favor of real community-based change. No flashy branding, no performative sound bites, just relentless work. What sets Mamdani apart is his refusal to sever ties with the base that elected him. He didn't shelve his activist background once he got a desk into office. He stayed in step with the same tenant unions, housing advocates, grassroots organizers who walked the blocks with him, and of course the Democratic Socialists of America, the organization that put out a lengthy statement congratulating him for winning the Democrat Party's mayoral primaries. Mamdani's legislative efforts speak volumes. He's championed the good cause eviction bill to shield renters from displacement, campaigned for public utility reform to keep essential services out of private hands, and has been one of the few state-level politicians to unapologetically advocate for Palestinian rights, even when it's politically inconvenient. Mamdani isn't chasing popularity in New York City. He's there to change the system, not blend into it. He's openly criticized the Democratic establishment for compromising on moral issues, and he's held the line when other progressives have wavered. That independence hasn't made him many friends in party leadership, but Mamdani isn't interested in winning approval from insiders. He avoids corporate donations, PAC money, and real estate lobbyists simply because he believes accountability belongs to the people, not the funders. His post-election presence mirrors his campaign. Volunteer networks are still active. Public meetings still happen. Organizing hasn't stopped. And when the cameras are off, Mamdani still shows up. What's next? Zohran Mamdani's story is a quiet revolution, not the kind that makes headlines or racks up fundraising totals, but the kind that reshapes what we think political power can be. There's no dynasty behind him, no polished consulting firm crafting his image, no six-figure speaking deals or second homes in upstate retreats. Instead, what you'll find is something more radical: presence, patience, and persistence. His rise from tenant organizer to New York State Assembly member didn't begin with endorsements from interest groups. It began with fighting evictions, courtrooms, rent strikes, late nights spent listening to neighbors instead of strategists. His politics weren't drafted by a think tank. They were forged in the daily grind of a New Yorker's life, on the N train, in mosques, in bodegas, in walk-up apartments. Mamdani's approach rejects both opulence and outrage as default political modes. He doesn't posture. He doesn't chase virality. His power isn't loud, but it's real. You'll find it in the rent relief he's helped secure, in the laws he's challenged, in the communities that feel, maybe for the first time, that someone in Albany is actually fighting for them. What Zohran models is something rare. A politics built from below, rooted in movement, and shaped by lived experience. He doesn't use identity as branding, he lives it. South Asian, East African, Muslim, Queens raised. Every part of his background feeds his vision, not for clout, but for clarity. He doesn't promise utopia. He promises work and delivers it. In an era of spectacle, Mamdani offers substance. In a city where politics is often transactional, he reminds people that it can still be transformational. His presence tells renters, immigrants, workers, and youth, you don't need to be born into power to fight for it. That's all for today. If you liked the video, make sure to share it with your friends. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as we have more of these deep dives coming. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.